woodworking. I've occasionally had folks ask me and talk to me about getting into woodworking and the question of what's a good starter project. When you go online, you see folks doing a lot of sort of starter projects that are actually fairly complicated. You know, you build a table or a chair or a cabinet for your first project. Seems a little bit much. And what I actually ended up building recently, which I think is a really good starter project, all you need is a circular saw, some sandpaper, some wood glue, and some wood. Very straightforward, and really any kind of saw would do. And so what I ended up making was some bookends, and these are just some solid wood bookends, and they came out pretty darn well. The way I made it is I basically bought a single board. I think it was a 6 or 8 foot board, and cut it into segments. So I basically measured how tall I wanted it, and measured that tall, and then cut 6 pieces, 6 boards that length. Now, one tip here: cut the first one, and then measure the second one with the first board. Cut that. Measure the next one with the first board. Use the first board as your base for all the rest of the cuts. That way you don't accidentally introduce errors which get worse and worse over the course of all of your cuts. If it's all based on the same board, even if one's a little bit off, they'll all be off relative to the first board, not relative to the second, then third, then fourth, and fifth. So cut them all the same height, and then glue them together using just straight up wood glue. Another tip there: when you squirt out the wood glue, go ahead and then spread that out on the surface. So don't just leave it beaded in long trails. Instead, spread that out. You can put a glove on and spread it out. You can use a paper towel and spread it out some that way. I found that gives it a more even bond, because if it's just these thick, gloopy runs all through there, then those parts can get bonded, but not the rest of it, not the parts in between. So you want to kind of spread out as much as you can. Then I just took my circular saw and angled the blade, and pretty much any circular saw these days will let you angle the blade. And then I just made a cut along the top, right? Pretty straightforward. And then I sanded it. And so you can see, so I sanded pretty much every side of this. Now, one thing I didn't do, I probably should have cut the bottom again once I glued them together, because these didn't end up being exactly the same width or height, each and every single one. There's a slight variation in each one. So I tried sanding it down. As you can see, it's pretty close, but there's some slight variation on the bottom. So I probably should have recut this. Might do that at some point. But instead I just kind of sanded until it was effectively even. In case you're wondering, these bookends are for work. I'm going to have a little library at work, and this is a logo for an organization I'm involved in at work. So this was laser etched on here. You don't have to do that, obviously, for your own bookends. You can do whatever you want. And I ended up not staining this. This is a nice oak, and I just really liked the base color of this, so I decided to keep it as it is. So that was the entire process. Cutting it into a total of 6 pieces, gluing those together in in a total of 2 bookends. So as you can see, that's 3, and that's 3 glued together. And then we just take those and cut it down. Cut that edge down. You can keep it square, but I like that edge, that angle. Now you will notice that I didn't manage to get that angle exactly right. It's sloping a little bit. I actually kind of like that slight slope to the to that top cut. You could be a little more careful. If I had a table saw, I could be much more specific with this cut, or I could have gone back and tried to get that a little bit better, a little bit more accurate. But oh well, right? Such is life. So these ended up being my bookends. Again, I'm quite content with these. They worked out pretty darn well and very, very easy. Again, just a single board, some wood glue, and a circular saw to cut them into the various pieces, and then just some sandpaper to sand down all of the rough edges and do that. If you wanted to upgrade this, again, you could stain the wood. You could carve designs in this using, say, a rotary blade or anything you wanted to. A chisel. If you wanted some neat designs in this, you could paint them, whatever you'd like. But I kind of like these as just some simple, natural bookends. So hope you found that useful, and I think it's a helpful first project if you want to get into things, or maybe a later project, just an easy thing to do in an hour or two, and get some bookends done. I think I ended up spending a total of um, maybe 2 hours on this between cutting the boards and gluing and all that. I could have probably done it in as little as an hour, maybe even less. But just there were a couple different pieces to that, and also laser etching took a little while of setting that up and so forth. And sanding took quite a while. So I think sanding was probably the big element of that. So again, hope you found this useful, and good luck in your woodworking projects.